the next two methods I would like to develop for the member class are to either retrieve the units of a facility object or to really set or change the units of a facility object. But now the question is, how do we identify a facility object from the array of facilities of a member? Let's make the following assumption. Let's say for the list of facilities you have added to the member, they have the unique names for the facility. For example, if you recall this particular example here, you can see the name for the utility spinning class, gym, and also locker. So these are simply unique names for the facility. So given a particular name, if the name is actually valid, in that case, you will be able to identify the corresponding facility objects. And then we can either, let's say, if we say we want to retrieve the facility object for gym, and then we want to maybe modify its units, maybe rather than reserving for 2 hours, we want to change it to maybe 3 hours or 4 hours, something like that. And similarly, we can also simply retrieve just the units of a particular facility, right? Let's now try to do this, and let's see how we can develop that. But conceptually, you really get an idea, right? So if I want to say I want to retrieve the units for locker, it's going to return 3. And if I say I want to modify the facility for locker and extend it for 2 hours, I'm going to change from 3 to 5, right? All right, let's now take a look. Let's now go back to the member class, and then let me maximize it. And so one would be an accessor for retrieving the units, and the other one would be a mutator for modifying the units for the facility. So that's what we would like to do. Let's now go to the accessor session over here. Let me declare the header for the methods, and then I'm going to write a JUnit tests, and then we're going to code it up. Okay, so that'll be the workflow. All right, let me go to the end of the accessor session, which will be here. Let's now declare how do we retrieve the units of the facility. So eventually we want to return the units. So that's why the return type should be integer. And every method should be public. So I would say public int. I'm going to return the integer units ultimately. And then what should be the name? Let's say get facility units. Okay. And then how do I uniquely identify a facility? I'm going to pass the string name. So string and also the name of the facility, right? And we are making the assumption that facility names are unique. So there are simply no duplicates. For example, there shouldn't be 2 locker facility in the array. In that case, you don't know which one to really retrieve its units. All right, and then for now, I'm simply just going to say return -1 just to make it compile. It's definitely not right, but I'm gonna program it later. So this will be one method I would like to do. The other one would be, given the name of a facility, I would like to modify its units, maybe by extending its units. Let me just go to, let's say, the end of the mutator section here. Okay, let me just put it at the end over here. Okay, it's going to be public, and then a mutator, so it should be returning void. And I want to extend, let's say, facility units. Okay, and then I'm also going to say a string name to identify the facility, and also I need to specify as the input how many units you would like to extend to the facility. So I can say integer how many, for example, right? How many units? And so here I simply just do nothing for now. So it's simply just going to do nothing. But I'm gonna code it up later. Let's now go to the tests, and then let's now try to program. Let's now document our expectation for these two methods, and then we'll come back to finish the coding. Let's now go under JUnit tests, and then go to test member. Okay, let me maximize it. And then I'm going to have a new test over here. And let me just copy basically this part over here, right? I'm still going to set up the 3 facilities as before. So that's the scenario for the object structure you're familiar with. Paste, and then I'm going to say test number 3. And then let me have a closing curly brackets over here. Okay, everything compiled. That's good. And let's see how we can actually retrieve the units. Okay, I can say integer units is simply assigned to let's say Hyung dot get facility units. And which one do I want to retrieve? Let's say I want to retrieve the middle one. The middle one would be, let's say, the gym. Okay, I want to retrieve the units for the gym. That's been booked so far. Okay, and over here, I'm gonna have gym over here. And what do I expect to see? Well, you can see here, I should really expect to see units should be 2, right? That's the expected value. Let me go back here, and then I would say assert equals, and I'm expecting to see 2, and then I can say units. Right, so that's the expected usage for get facility units. And then I'm going to, let's say I want to extend the gym usage for Hyung maybe for 2 hours, let's say. So I can say Hyung dot extend facility units, and then I also want to identify the gym facility objects, and notice that it should be case sensitive. And how many? Let's say by another 2 hours. And then I can simply do over here assert, and then after this I can double check to make sure the unit has been extended from 2 to 4. Okay, so assert equals over here, and then it should be from 2 to 4, and then Hyung dot get facility units. So now for gym over here, so you can see I'm basically trying to call get facilities actually 2 times. Before the extension, the return value should be 2. And then after the extension, the return value should be 4. That's basically what I'm doing. And then once further to it, I want to make sure after this, if I try to get a payment due, so what should be the value, right? So let me just copy over here assert equals from before, and then I can simply put the assert over here. Previously, it used to be 2.0 for the gym, and then it was 2 hours. But now it should be extended to 4 hours, right? So that's the expected value. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, and of course, if I simply just launch the J units, I simply got red bar. It's definitely not surprising, right? I haven't done anything yet for the implementation. All right, so I have already precisely documented my expectation for the methods, especially these 2 methods, one accessor and one mutator. So now I'm going to go back and finish the coding. Let me go back to the member class over here, and the idea about implementing these 2 methods will be very similar. So let's now talk about each one by one. Why don't we go to the accessor method over here? So what should we do? Conceptually, I'm going to do some tracing together with you later, but conceptually you should really go over the facilities pretty much like how you went over the array for calculating the payment due, right? Get payment due, which we discussed in the previous video. You're still going to go over this facilities array and then go one by one, and then for each one of the facility I'm looking at right now, if the facility is simply gym, in that case, I know this is the one to return its units. Otherwise, if it is not gym, so that means I simply don't need to do anything. I can simply skip. I can just bypass. So it sounds like a conditional or selection to write inside the body of the loop. All right, so that will be the idea. And similarly, if I want to modify or to extend the units, I also need to go over the array over here one by one. And if the current facility object I'm looking at for the loop counter I, in that case, I would need to selectively, if the name is simply gym, in that case, I'm going to increment whatever units it is by how many units parameter. All right, so that's the idea conceptually. Let's now do it. Let me now go to get facilities over here. I'm simply just going to let's say facility, because eventually I want to identify whatever facility it is. In this case, for example, this one here. So I will simply say facility. Let's say F is simply equal to null over here. Okay. In the beginning, I simply the F simply doesn't store any meaningful address, so I simply set it to null, and I'm expecting to reassign that somewhere in the loop. Okay, so I'm gonna say for integer I is assigned to 0, and then I is less than, And we know that from the previous video, we should say this.nof, right? Rather than this.facilities.length. Otherwise, you will get into the null pointer exception. We already explained that in the previous video. You can review it. And then I++. All right. And over here, we're going to say if, basically, if this.facilities at position I, and then the current one, and then dot, we actually want to get the name of the facility, but so far we haven't really defined the accessor method yet, have we? So let me just go back there. I forgot. Okay, let me go back to Package Explorer and let me go to the facility class over here. You can see the name and also the price and the units. So these are all privates. So if I want to access them, I need to define a public accessors for them. Right? Let me do it. So I can say public and the integer, let's say string get name, the name of the facility. So I can simply say return this dot name. Similarly, I can also get access to the units. Public integer get units. Over here, return this dot units. I don't seem to really need the accessor method for price for this application so far, so we can leave it out. But if you want to define that, feel free, be my guest. Go back to member here, and then we want to say this.facilities I dot get name. So if the name of the current facility object I'm looking at is the same, well, remember, if you want to compare value for the string, you want to use the equals method. You don't want to use the equal. Is the same as the name that we are looking for over here, the name over here. Okay. You can see the conditional here. Oh, sorry, I just lost the focus over here. Okay, if that's the case over here, and then I know that f should be assigned to this dot facilities at position I. Right, I know that. And then let's now program the early exit version. Let's do that. Okay. The early exit version would be, we want to know, so as soon as we have found this particular facility objects, in that case, we can simply exit from the loop. So we can say Boolean has found this particular objects. Initially, it's simply just going to be false. We haven't found it yet. It's pretty much like an existential property coding if you refer to your lecture notes. So I would say in it, we're going to stay in the loop as long as we have not found. Has not found. Not the case we have found. Has not found this, and also the I index should be before should be strictly less than the this.nof, right? All right, and then as soon as we have found it, we're going to set the has found to be true. All right, so this will make sure it will be efficient. Has found, not had found. All right. And then after this, so you can see it is possible that if we pass invalid name, if an invalid name is actually passed, so that means we never get a chance to really satisfy this particular Boolean condition. For example, let's say if I say I want to get a units for tennis court. The tennis court does not match this name, does not match this name, and does not match this name either. So that means the facility really should stay as null. Over here, you never get a chance to really get reassigned over here. So we need after the loop, after we exit, we want to do some conditional over here. We can say if the f remains to be null, in that case, that means, so this simply means the input name is does not denote any added facility. Okay. In that case, we can simply just return. We can say here. It's up to you. Normally, I will only have a single return. Here, you can simply say return -1. Otherwise, you can say you can return over here. So what should we return? In this case, we because f is not equal to null in the else case, f dot. Let me actually maximize it. Then we can say return f dot get units. Okay, so that's one way to go. Okay, that's one way. Or you can alternatively, if you just want to have a single return, which I personally prefer, in that case you can say integer units is actually assigned to maybe -1, and then you can say if f is not equal to null, then you're going to, okay, let me just put this one. You can just keep, let me keep this version over here for you if you wish. Okay, you can use it if you wish. And I'm going to give you the second version. If f is not equal to null, in that case, units is simply assigned to reassign f.get units. And then eventually I can return units. Okay, just a single return. Okay, either version 1, you got multiple returns, or version 2. It's completely up to you. Okay, I'll leave the choice to you. Okay, so that would be the first method here. And then let's now do the second one. And the second one would be we want to find out where the facility object is identified by the name, and then we want to extend that particular facility object, right? So it will be a very similar process. So let me copy and paste some code, which is going to result in some duplicate, but that's okay. Let's do the improvement later. All right. So here we are still going to go over the facility one by one. And for example, if I want to extend the gym, so that means if the current facility object's name matches the gym, and then I'm going to change this value over here. Similar idea. Okay, so you can see part of this method over here, the part specifically to identify the facility object should be the same as the accessor method that we just did. So what I will do is I'm simply just going to copy and paste this particular code over here, right? It can just be reused. Well, since I talk about reusability, so we might need a helper method later, but we'll do that later. Copy that and then put it over here. All right. So now after we have exit from the loop, it is possible that f is simply remains to be null. Okay, over here, and over here you can either say, okay, something I forgot to mention. Either you can say if f is not equal to null. Okay, equally speaking, you can also say if it is the case that we have found is equal to true. Right, so what you can put inside this particular condition over here, you can either put f is not equal to null, or you can say has found is equal to true, or simply just has found. Because if f is not equal to null, so that it is guaranteed that has found has been set to true. So these two conditions are logically equivalent. So it's kind of up to you which one you want to use. Okay, I'll put it there. Okay, and then if it is not equal to null, then I'm going to set its units to be the extended one. So I can say f dot, well, I want to set its units. Oh, by the way, I don't have this public method yet, have I? So let me go back to facility over here, right? You can see I just keep adding methods as I need it. We only got over here just the public accessor for getting retrieving the units, but we don't have one to really change it, right? So why don't we do it now? So I can say public over here, void set units over here, and then we can simply choose the same name. But to really avoid the shadowing effect, we want to use this to really disambiguate about the attribute value we want to refer to. So this units is assigned to some units over here. All right. Let me go back to member over here, and then I would say if the f is not equal to null, then I'm going to say f dot set units over here. And what should I set it to? It should be f dot get units, the current one, plus however many it is by this input parameter. All right. And otherwise, if f is simply just equal to null, so that means it's denoting some facility that has not been added. In that case, we simply do nothing. Okay, I'll just put it here. The input name denotes some facility not being added. Then do nothing. All right. So that's about these two methods. Let's see. Let's run the JUnit test. Hopefully that will work. If there's any bugs, then we're gonna fix them. Let me go back to test member over here, and let me run the tests over here. All right, good. All right, everything works. So you can see so far we got 5 test cases, right? And there's one more thing I'd like to do in terms of the coding, and then I will trace the code quickly for you. Let's go back to the member class over here, you can see this part of the code apparently duplicates completely with this part of the code, right? You can see when I was developing the two methods, you already see the duplicates. Having duplicates is always a no-no for your code developments. You really want to minimize that as much as possible. So whenever you identify any common parts for the methods, in which case you got duplicates, you should always factor out the common part into a helper method so that you can only call the helper method in each one of them. It will be much better practice. Okay. So what should we do? So what we should do is we should really now create a helper method over here. Okay. And typically for helper method is only for the internal use within the current class. So in that case, you don't really have to make them public. Typically, helper method should be private. Okay. So I would say private over here. However, if you really believe the helper method can also be used by other external classes, then you can still make it public. But for this case, I'll make it just private. Okay. I'll say private, and then basically this block of code, think about what it is doing. This block of code basically is trying to return some facility objects that will match the name over here of the input parameter, right? That's basically what you will do. And I'll write it down, and then you can think about why I can really transform from this block of code inside this method here into a separate method. Okay, so my idea would be, since eventually I really want to use the return facility, which can either be null or not null, and I can do some selective action. So this block of code is really going to return to me some facility objects, either null or not null. Okay, so what I will do is I'm going to declare the header first. So it's going to return some facility, okay, over here, and then let's say get facility by name, of course, and then I need to pass the name over here. All right, and then I'm just going to cut this part of the code, and then you know what? Let me just copy first, and I'll replace it later. So I'll put it here, okay, and then over here I can simply say return f. Over here, you can see it's very similar to before. You can see I'm just trying to make this block of code reusable by as many other methods in the same class as possible. That's why I make it private. And then every time when I execute this block of code, f over here maybe is initialized to be null. It may or may not be actually reassigned inside this selective action over here. If it is reassigned, that means the name denotes some existing facility in the facilities array. Otherwise, it simply denotes some non-existing facility. All right. So now, how do I call this particular helper method? It's pretty easy. So what I will do is for this particular part over here, I'm simply going to say so f over here. Rather than executing this block of code, I'm going to say this dot get facility and then name. That's all I need to do. So because get facility is actually a method in the current class, so that's why I'm just using this. So later on, for example, if I'm using Hyung as the member context objects, this over here will be replaced by Hyung, right? All right, so that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna do something similar. Let me scroll down over here, and then I'm just going to replace this part over here also by that particular method call, right? This dot get facility and then the name. That's what I will do, right? You can see after that we can always do some selective action that's actually specific to this particular method, right? Hopefully you can see the process of getting version number 1, we actually got duplicates, and for version number 2, we introduce a private helper method and then call that in different other public methods, right? Now, the most important thing to do is to make sure such minimization of the duplicates is actually still going to work. So let me go back to test member over here, and then I'm going to rerun all the tests over here, right? I still got a green bar. All right, so that's about these two methods I would like to introduce to you. And now let's do some tracing very quickly.